start having an issue during the webinar, just type something to us and we'll correct it. Thanks. Fantastic. So welcome to our webinar on the developing a comprehensive induction program. So as I said in the email to you, we're going to try and really have this be as having discussion as much as we can during the webinar. And if you have questions, just please type them out in the chat bar and we can actually go back and make sure that all your questions are answered. As you saw from the email, today's learning objectives, what we hope to have accomplished by the end of the 2 hours, is that you're going to have a really good idea what a comprehensive induction program looks like, and actually we're going to have you really think about what your next steps are going to be to make sure that happens at your program. Some of you I know are already involved in some aspects of it through the peer coaching for new teachers project, but there might be some aspects that you want to add on, and others may just be starting this whole process. And you'll be working with your instructional coach to be able to make sure that you can move forward with this. Hi Cynthia. The second learning objective is we're going to actually have you really discuss your responsibilities for leading the development, monitoring, and evaluating in a comprehensive induction program. Is there any other things that you want to make sure gets accomplished during this our 2 hours together? If so, do you want to just type it in so we make sure that we cover it?
This looks great, Sue. Thank you.
Thanks. So the first, hi Lakia, we just started. So the first question I want to ask you, why is a comprehensive teacher induction program so important? Do you want to just type whatever your thoughts are and we can kind of start getting you to think about it? So if you want to just type something. So Adam said there's a steep learning curve for new instructors. Suzanne said, so expectations are clear. Okay, we're just making sure that Cynthia and Elkia are able to hear us here and speak. It avoids issues later on.
I see how to type, but I agree with everything everyone's saying.
Okay. And let's just think about to make new teachers feel part of the team, so all teachers know what is expected of them. Retention of employees. Yeah, definitely.
Because ACLS is changing everything.
Oh, go ahead.
Because ACLS is always changing everything.
Okay, so new policies and procedures.
Yes.
What about for our students? What is the importance of a comprehensive induction program for our students? Increases teacher effectiveness, Stacy says. And why is that so important to our students? So what? Right. So Zeb says it's a smooth transition when a new teacher comes into the class, and it's the key to their success. It even levels the playing field. Effective teachers equals retention and learner gains, as Christine says. So we want every student to have the most effective teacher they can have from day one, and that's what the teacher induction is about. Great, thank you. So let's go and let's look a little bit deeper. I think we've covered a lot of this, but let's just go a little bit more, and so we all have on the same page. Interesting enough that for K to 12, they require every teacher to have 50 hours of induction. Now, that doesn't mean that it's 50 hours of just one-on-one time with a peer coach, but it could be collaborative time with teachers in their program. It could be attending some PD, but altogether, they require about 50 hours. which I thought was interesting. And right now, about how much time do our teachers get? What's how many people? About 15, 12. So the art of teaching and whatever else that you have, right, for the new staff. So there's a little gap, even for what APE, what our teachers get, and what K-12 teachers are currently receiving. And they all have the, have this, in service and a license and whatever. And that's, so teachers, the most significant gains in their effectiveness is within the first 3 to 5 years in the classroom. And this is done by a research study by Papai and Kraft in 2013. And for many ABE teachers, especially our teachers don't have to have licenses, so they don't have the strong pre-service training or the expertise in the content area that necessary, or the instructional practices that many K-12 teachers do. So it's really critical that through this induction, they can get that kind of support. For the third bullet, induction programs provide a systematic structure, which it's, when you kind of start developing it at your program, you can have, actually interesting, what just happened there? You could develop and make sure that there's a systematic structure that all new teachers will be able to be engaged with. And one thing that was really important, that how does it differ from other PD that teachers may be able to go out to? Where is the experience happening?
Yeah. It's unique to each program.
It's actually, right, it's specific to their program. It's happening at the program in their classroom. And it helps them to be more effective, refine their practice, familiar with the AB program, and really understand the professional responsibilities. And someone, I can't remember who said it with the posting, but someone said that, I think Stacy did, that things are changing in our field, and policies change, and right now we're with WIOA, we're in constant flux. So this really helps the new teacher. Any thoughts about this? Great. And the last, induction programs provide, as we're really been focused on that, differentiated support. Right. It's as Stacey says, it really holds teachers accountable too. And it provides differentiated support and guidance through those tailored learning opportunities that's coordinated by a peer coach to help new teachers help students be able to have meaningful learning in the classroom. Someone actually is shuffling paper.
Oh, sorry, that's me. Oh, they needed chips.
Oh, you want to share? So just to summarize, induction programs, they improve teacher effectiveness. They foster a collaborative culture. They really let teachers really start talking to each other. They ultimately benefit the students the most. And I think one of the keys is that they re-energize veteran teachers with new ideas and really have them look at their own learning. And we're really lucky because we have a few of our colleagues from our Leadership Academy are participating right now in the peer coaching for new teachers project or program, and they can actually talk about what their experiences and how it's impacting their new teacher and their veteran teacher. And we'll get to that a little bit later. I just want to remind everyone the differentiated support. Everyone should really be very aware of these 4 stages: the unaware stage, conscious stage, action stage, and refinement stage. And the peer coaches can become trained about these stages, and they could be able to, it becomes a team with you, the peer coach, and the teacher really working together. So before we go into the components, are there any questions that anyone has so far about why induction programs, what they are, or why we should have induction programs?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Sorry. Do you have any questions? Before we move on, do you have any questions? I don't know why this keeps moving. God. I think my computer's haunted. I'm not even touching anything and it was moving. Do you have any questions regarding what an induction program is, why it's important, before we move on to kind of going into more depth to talk about the 5 components of comprehensive induction program?
Nope.
Fantastic. So we're going to start with the first component, and it's going to be program vision. We really, remember, I think in the first session, we started talking about vision, and even for our induction program, it's a program vision that promotes high quality, I'm going to say research-based or evidence-based instruction. And does anyone want to talk about what is a program vision?
Well,
what is it?
Just making clear about what the culture of the program is in terms of student-centered learning, making sure that everyone is aware of the vision and on the same page, students and teachers alike.
Okay. So it's really even going to, one step further. It's making sure everyone knows where we're headed.
Yes.
So we're trying to, what is the program's vision for teachers and students, as Stacy said, and how will the program help realize that vision? How will we get there? And one of the really important things is that for the for the induction program, anyone working with the new teachers has to make sure that they understand the vision and can support it.
Mm-hmm.
Christine asked a great question. Is this vision different from the vision we wrote for the program? Your program vision should, and Gina, you can help me out here, because I think we talked about program vision in also managing change, that you have a program vision for where your program is headed, but you should also have a vision for when you're taking on a new and like a new project. You should also have like a vision or where this project is heading. So in your vision, if you think about your program vision, does it talk about anything about where you want your students and teachers to end up, where you want them to go? Does it talk about being like a really strong educational entity?
Well, this is Christine. Program vision, it's just like a one-liner, which is because we tried to make it simple. Our mission actually goes into more detail on some of the other stuff.
Okay.
So my question was, are we creating a vision for this teacher
Right.
induction? Okay.
Yes.
So it's different.
Yes.
Okay.
This would be different. This will be helping you get to your program. So when you start any new project or initiative, you will have a vision or a vision or a
goal,
ideal
perhaps?
of where you're going.
Yeah.
Of where you go. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah, I think that's maybe where the confusion is, just because we have multiple layers of visioning going on, that to perhaps think of the project-based initiative as a goal or an objective. In my program, our vision is a one-liner like Christine's, and we have guiding principles for practice. But in thinking about getting towards a comprehensive induction program, I think of it as a specific project
Goal.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
And I think it might even be a little bit, and we'll get to this a little bit later. It's also a program value, your culture or a value that really promotes high quality research-based instruction. Boy, this is really sensitive as we go. So is that clear to everyone about that when we talk about program vision, it's really the goal of, let's use the word goal, but it's really making it so that everyone understands, is clear where you're heading with this project. So we use the vision because you should be able to see it. When you talk about it, they should have a really clear picture of what it's going to look like. Does that make it a little bit clearer?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
So in your program, how do you promote high-quality research-based instruction? Thanks, Adam.
Just keeping it light, Sue.
Saw-based, Christine says. Okay, let's take a few. Let's take. I'm not very good. PD. Okay, so we have provide research articles discussing at staff meetings by implementing STAR, SAW-based, observations. Okay. What else for you as a leader? Feedback using CCR standards. As a leader, what else is your role in promoting high quality?
Holding everyone accountable to the expectations you set and setting those expectations to include research-based practices and evidence-based instruction.
Observations, feedback, holding teachers accountable. And again, it's great to hold teachers accountable and be able to do observations and feedback, but teachers all have to know what the expectations are and have them clear. Remember that from when we talked about the Instructional Leadership series? Lakia said fostering a culture of reflective practice. How do we make it clear what the expectations are? What tool do we introduce to you? I'll give you a hint. Is one possible tool. Remember the Mass Educator Growth and Evaluation tool that goes through and talks about all the different elements of effective practice?
Yep.
Does everyone remember what it is? Remember, and we talk about from there's the standard and all the elements for each area of teaching, and you can actually rate people on that. Does this ring a bell for everyone?
Yes.
Is anyone not clear? Yes, you use it for informing. Yeah. So there's many different tools that you can use. Marzano has a tool. Charlotte Danielson has a tool about what characteristics of effective teaching that you can use for this. But you need to use, it makes sense to use the Massachusetts tool that we gave out, but everyone in your program has to first understand what effective teaching looks like. And that's where your role comes in, to make sure that happens. And especially for your new teacher, so they understand what effective practice looks like. Any questions? So be thinking about this when you're doing your plan in the future. You have to go back to that and think about how are you going to be introducing that to your new teachers, but also you need to be thinking about, again, how you're going to be introducing it to all your staff. Because really, when you're doing feedback and evaluation and supporting them, they need to know and be on the same page about what is effective teaching looks like. The next thing is high quality coaching. And coaching you could actually either provide the coaching skills to your own coaches. You could go to SABEs and be able to have them develop the skills through different professional development activities. But you need someone who has selected because they are respected in the field or by their program, by their colleagues. They're a skilled teacher. They are knowledgeable about the content. Hopefully you can match someone up with the same field or subject area, but right now it might be difficult as you're developing your peer coaches. Again, we said about they're already trained. And they have the personality to be able to help work with new teachers to help them be able to improve. But the key really is that they're trained to coach new teachers and they have ongoing support to be able to build their capacity when coaching. And the research says that teachers who work with a coach within the first 6 weeks at the start of the new school year implement at least one new instructional strategy. Research has also shown that through coaching, when you go to a professional development activity, you're more apt to be able to integrate it into your practice. So let's see what peer coaching is. So we make sure we are all on the same page with that. It's a confidential process where two or more professional colleagues work together. They reflect on current practices. They kind of expand or refine and build on their new skills and knowledge. It's a collaboration, so they're constantly sharing ideas. It's, again, just like adult learning. It's not one person just giving knowledge. It's the peer coach and the teacher teaching each other. They may want to be able to do even some classroom research if it's an experienced teacher. And they solve problems that happen in the classroom. Does anyone have anything they want to add to this for peer coaching?
Yes, I'm ready.
And Stacy talks about that the confidential part of this has left me distanced as the director. I can't know exactly what concerns are. And this is something you really need to work. It's confidential that in the sense that, and we'll get to this a little bit later, it's confidential that the coach should not be telling all the other instructors, but the coach should be working with the director.
Okay.
On what's happening. So they might be saying, okay, right now we're working on formative assessment, using formative assessment in the classroom. They may not tell you, it's the fourth session and this teacher still is not using formative assessment, but they may say, I've just introduced some articles to you, and we're trying to actually have formative assessment at the end of this class, or what they're working on. But you should be part of the peer coaching process of the support. And we'll get to this a little bit later too, but a comprehensive induction program, and I'm actually going to go, I have to go back to this. It should be a collaboration between ABE directors, peer coaches, and the beginning teacher. And in order to really make it successful, it has to be all three of you. And actually, I want to say it may even be with other staff too. So because you want to have the other teachers being able to support this new teacher. So there's a community. You're trying to enhance collaboration in your program. Does that make sense, Stacy, and everyone else?
Yes.
And as the director, you're the one setting this, what the vision is. So you can make it clear that it's a collaboration. That's your role. Okay, let's see where we are here. So just let's take about 15 seconds or 20 seconds. How do you ensure that the peer coach and new teachers have time to meet? So let's take about 15 seconds and you can put your comments in. So okay, great. So build it into the schedule. Schedule meeting times. Budget it and explain it from the start.
I have a question,
And
Christina, about, can I interrupt with the budget?
Yeah,
How,
go.
if this becomes a more formalized process with a peer coach, how do you budget for that in lieu of a stipend? Not necessarily, if someone gets assigned to be a peer coach, 1 year maybe they'll be a new staff member, 1 year perhaps not. How do you plan for that budgetarily?
Well, one thing is that for the new teacher peer coaching project, for the 2 years, the peer coach does get a stipend to be able to go through the training and be able to have, be able to develop their skills. So that's one thing. And then after the second year, then you have to figure out how you're going to be able to build it in. But they'll be much more efficient at the process, so it will be a little bit easier. But let's go to how would you build it in? What could you use? What monies? For what? You could use some prep time. Mary says PD, right. PD and staff development, right. This is an amazing form of professional development. So you use some of the professional development money to be able to put this in place. Program planning to make them start out. Who just wanted to say something? Oh, people are just whispering.
Because I want to subscribe. I may do it tomorrow anyway.
Okay, so you just have to be creative with your monies, but this really should make a big difference in being to help new teachers become effective quicker. So it should be, you should be able to budget in PD, especially for the new teacher. And that's actually giving release time too for them to meet. That would be the time that you would have to, figure out. What type of differentiated supports can a peer coach provide that can be helpful to a new teacher? Modeling, yes. Great, Mary. Thank you. Classroom management. Definitely. How to contextualize. And I think that the thing is that they could do lesson planning together. They could do modeling. They could co-teach. They could how to differentiate structure. So these are very different topics that they can talk to. But there's so much the peer coach can really support the teacher in the classroom by really being able to have the new teacher can go observe the peer coach can make sure that the new teacher can observe various teachers in your program. They could actually work together on a lesson plan. They can co-teach a lesson. They could observe reviewing lesson plans with a rubric feedback. They could look at student work together to see what's going on if someone's struggling. So there's so much they could do together, and they're right there on site to be able to help with problem solving. These are all great ideas that they can work on. But again, it's a differentiated support based on where that practitioner is based in their cycle of reflection. So if the person is unaware, they might be doing much more hand-holding than if someone is at a conscious level, right? Does everyone remember that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. Any questions about this? Great. And a really important thing I just want to point out here, that it's also wonderful to have a peer coach be able to, the peer coach, if there's new teachers attending professional development, art of teaching, other, other very foundational types of PD, this coach is available to to the new teacher to make sure they can integrate what they've learned in PD and help them really practice what they've learned to make it really become part of their craft, part of their own practice. It makes implicit knowledge explicit. And when we're talking about trying to improve student learning, that's just really, really important at this point. Let's see, I'm missing one slide, but we'll get to it maybe after this. Another important component is the importance of high quality professional development, and that enhances the teacher's knowledge and instructional practices. And remember, it's aligned with the Mass AB Educator Growth and Evaluation rubric. What do people remember about what is high quality professional development? We covered it in one of the May list sessions. Tied to learner gains. It's really focused on the learner and improving their learning. Can anyone else, based on research, is it short-term or long-term? Right. Longer term with practice and reflection. Right. So as the leader of your program, you have to also, we talked about this during that session, you also have to be making sure that your program understands what high quality professional development is to make sure that they are able to enhance their professional practice. Any questions? So let's go on to the fourth component of a comprehensive induction program, a supportive network that new teachers can feel that they can go to for ongoing support. How can an induction program support this? Okay, share birthdays and celebrations. Set up a teacher learning community. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that? Peer sharing. Okay, great. Anyone else have peer observations? Right, fantastic. Common planning time. Yes, Suzanne, thank you. Joint curriculum development. What about if a student seems to be struggling in their class? How can this supportive network help? Right, they can problem solve together. So if a new teacher is having an issue with they're trying to get someone to understand a certain concept and a student's just not grasping it, they can work with other teachers to figure out what can I do to make this student learn what they need to learn. So they can and Lakia says we can discuss student progress in staff meetings, which is really focused on learning together, learning community. You can actually, and Stacy said you can also reach out to other partners such as the Mass Rehab to try and get support. Research shows that a supportive network is really critical, that collaboration is so important for being able to help strengthen teaching. And lastly, the last component is assessment. So it's through self-assessment. Remember we talked about how important self-assessment is for the teacher, especially the new teacher, for the director and peer coaches to do observations, and examining of student data. And this will all help you determine how the new teacher's progressing and identify areas that they need more support. So let's look at the whole idea of and so Stacey says the ongoing self-assessment reflection part has been the hardest due to time constraints and resistance, not new teachers. Stacey, tell us a little bit more about what you've been experiencing. That good.
Well, basically just, I keep pushing this in terms of the lesson plans and scope and sequence, but it's very difficult to get people to actually take it seriously and do it thoroughly. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss as to what more to do. I mean, I've had Mary come in and talk to them about the importance of it, and I just don't get it.
Okay, so let's keep this question, and when we go and talk about a little bit more about the program culture, let's come back to and see if there's anything that could be done with it or what's going on there. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So keep bringing this up, Stacy. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So examination of student data. What is that all about? What student data are they talking about, do you think? He says mapped informative summative assessments to inform teaching, measurable skill gains. Anything else? So remember that the mapped informative summative assessments, once you get to the summative assessments, it's really more like a autopsy, the data. It's giving you what went wrong. Formative assessments gives you what you can be doing ongoing to make sure it happens, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to be able to use both and have a culture of data use for both. And I kind of said, and why is the culture of using data so important? We'll jump down to this. Staying student-centric. What's our programs all about? What is our purpose?
Yep.
It's making sure our students learn, right? So then says the students can see progress to graduate. It's a way to be sure that students are getting the info they need, right? Students need to know how they're doing so they can see what modifications, or they can ask for what they need to make sure it happens for effective teaching, right? So by looking at the data, teachers in your program can make the adjustments needed to make sure that all students are achieving the goals that they want. Right now, would you say, actually, this is just, I don't even know how I'm going to really do it. Do you think that most of your, right now, do you think you have a culture that really encourages data use? Okay. So Gina says that some teachers really respond well and some get really defensive about it. And when they get defensive, what stage of this is that person usually at? If someone's offensive about why that someone's not making progress and they're feeling that it's them, right? They're really at a stage that they need really a lot more support to be able to build their skills. Does everyone remember that?
Yes.
Right, and Gina was saying that this is a pretty unreflective teacher that really needs that kind of support to build their expertise so they can to strengthen their teaching. So, it's something that and we're going to talk about this in 2 minutes again, but let's just go back to why is self-assessment and induction program so important? And self-assessment is part of the data you use. So say says commitment to lifelong learning and able to adjust as stakes get higher. Oh gosh. So the teachers can identify where they are and where they need to get to, right. So it's a starting point so you can see where gaps might be. It's helpful to, Suzanne says, it's helpful to know where this educator might need support. Is the self-assessment always correct?
No.
Right. We know, remember right. Remember we talked about that in the training. There's a difference on how accurate, how often they reflect, and the accuracy and the depth that they reflect at. But this is just part of the induction program to make a stronger reflective practitioner. So let's go on to how do you create a data literate culture at your program? Adam, what have you been doing there? You said it said that you're not there yet, but you're getting better.
What I've been spending a lot of time doing is figuring out better ways to collect data so that it can be more usable. I think in the past, as far as student learning went, certainly we collected portfolios of student work, but so much of it was based on NAP scores. So what I've been spending a lot of time doing, especially recently, is developing the tools that will help us to collect additional data that can be used in measuring student progress and student performance. So things like rubrics and progress reports and things of that nature that will create more data points for our students.
Okay, great. And Stacey says she explains the MAP GLEs and what assessment data means. Deb says that she shares the good data at her staff. What do you mean by good data at your staff meetings before you introduce what they're being successful at?
I think there's some things that I'm looking to.
Okay. Actually, I'm not sure if someone's trying to talk or is that just background?
Do I worry about money? Yeah. It's all that stuff.
Okay. I always start with a positive, right? Yeah, yes. But other ways of doing it is make data really accessible. Just don't bring it out for your. Someone actually, Kate, Does someone, is there
Yeah,
some conversation?
you need to mute your mics if you're not intending for the whole group to hear your conversations going on in the background. So to mute your mic, you just click on the microphone in the bottom center. You'll see the line go through your mic, and that will provide you with privacy. I'm going to type that into the chat as well.
Thank you. So other ways of getting the data culture is where come from on this?
Say that again, please.
Where does the leadership come from for data literate culture? Who's the leader of your program? You're right. Each one of you. So what do you need to do? Right, Chief Education Officer. You need to, Suzanne Martin says you model it. Right. Take a long vacation. We're not letting you go, Stacy. So, right, let the teacher see and explain it. So you need to model it. You need to make it very accessible. So instead of hiding it, bring it out into the open. Have it so that people can see what your attendance. Oh, Deborah, did we lose you? So they can see the data, see what their attendance is, see, have it, see what scores are, have it so that not just the teachers, but even the students can see it. I know that might be hard for other people, in some programs. Yes, Stacey said they share with students. Formative assessments. You really push the formative assessment data, and how do you use that? Any other ideas? So Stacy says she shares the data with students, and Gina says that she does too. Stacy shares the link between attendance and learner gains. So you really need to make it really so that everyone is seeing the data, that it really becomes that it's not just something you bring out every quarter or, at a staff meeting for 15 minutes, that it's really part of your program, because it really is so important to your program success. How do people feel about that? Does it make sense? Yeah.
This is Christine.
Okay.
I can see the sharing of attendance, but the learner gain, if we're just talking about our required assessments, we haven't even done the second assessment yet, so we can't share that yet. And it trickles in, so we have some, not all. And then as far as how to capture formative assessment and share that, I don't know how to do that.
But it could be that at staff meetings you actually have people talk about.
We do.
Right. So that would be, you just have to make sure that people realize this is that you're talking about data. This is the data that a program that really encourages data use by being able to talk about these things. Because there's qualitative and there's quantitative data. I think people, when they hear that we use data in our program, I think everyone gets very gun shy and nervous about data.
Yeah. Okay.
And as the new performance measures come out and you start getting data, you may decide to use more data or kind of hone in on it. But as a program, you can decide what kind of data will really help us to really improve. And Stacy talks about teachers can make report cards for students, use that data. Lakia says we provide real data sharing with students. And Gina has the progress reports, including test scores, attendance, and teacher narratives. And I think we've shared some information about the progress reports, didn't we, in the Blackboard course? I thought we did. Okay, so this is all how you're using data. So remember that if anyone ever asks you how you use data, you do use data. You have a culture of data. You just need to really promote it and talk about it to your program staff. Okay? So let's go to program conditions needed for success. Yeah. You guys have to read between the lines when I'm saying things. Very good, Adam. Did anyone read Adam's post? By anyone, do you mean A Celeste's summer? Ha 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 ha. Sometimes it's the what you don't say that's important. Exactly, Adam. Okay, so program conditions that are needed for success. So, first bullet, a strong and supportive instructional leader. And I want to also say that it's an instructional leader and an organizational commitment that provides a systematic and comprehensive support structure for ongoing professional learning for teachers. So when you think of this, what do you currently have at your program that supports this? Okay, Gina, I'm going to actually get back to Gina, your question. So what's a strong supportive instructional leader and organizational support that provides a systematic and comprehensive support structure for ongoing professional learning for teachers? Okay, so Stacy says, share PD opportunities, cover classes as needed, ask teachers to share key findings with other staff. Great. What about just being able to start from square one with when a new teacher comes into your program, from day one, there's a strong support system in place up until the time the person leaves your program. And continuous improvement is something that is valued. Does that make sense to you all?
Yes.
And that's what this is all about, for you to establish to make sure your program has something in place from day one to retirement. The key thing for this also is to have someone that really will coordinate this initiative. So it does not have to necessarily be you as the director, but you as the director has to have really send a message that this is important. And if it's not you, who will coordinate this effort? How do you ensure that obstacles and barriers are removed? And how do you make sure that this program is successful? And how are you monitoring and evaluating the program ongoing, getting information back about the success of this program? So this is a great way of sharing. If there's only so much that a leader can do, but you can share your leadership or distributive leadership to get others to be able to take on this leadership role. Some of you may have people in your program that can do it, that you'll be able to tap into. Others may have a smaller program that you may not, and you may have to be the one that does it. Any questions about this condition?
Nope.
Okay, if anything comes up, as just write it in the chat box and we can come back to it. Evidence-based instruction that is aligned with the vision and goals of the program. So you want to make sure that teachers are being able to have a vast toolbox of evidence-based instructions that they can use when going into their classroom. And that teachers want to, that they're using the highest quality instruction that will support improving student achievement. which makes sense, correct?
Yes.
Then we have program culture, climate, and working conditions, which supports continuous improvement to meet the program goals. So again, what is the difference between the culture and climate? So, any ideas?
Yeah, I'm writing.
Yeah, I had heard that Ruth passed away. I just saw that. Okay. So culture is a little bit harder to change. That's right, Stacy. And climate kind of is the impact of what's happening in your program day to day. How would you how would you define would you say culture is what is normal at your program, the day-to-day interactions?
Yeah, it's based on values.
Right. So culture is kind of based on the group's underlying assumptions, their values, their beliefs, their norms, feelings, rituals, celebrations, symbols. I mean, almost everything goes into the person's culture. And the climate is really your day-to-day interactions with that culture. But the culture is really what really drives what really happens in the program.
Right.
So what an important thing, and when we're going to talk about culture from moving forward from here, a very important component of culture, that you could have all these rules written down in your staff handbook, and you can think you have a certain culture, but it's really the unwritten rules will trump the written rules. So if you think you have a culture of continuous improvement, and yet you don't enforce teachers going to professional development, what is the culture?
Yep.
New teachers learn the culture very quickly. It's something that they grasp onto very, very quickly. So it's really how things are enforced that really determines the culture at your program. And that's the leadership. If you're not going to be the leader, someone else will become the leader. A subculture or whoever will decide what's going to be happening at your program. So the program culture, climate, and working conditions which support continuous improvement to meet the program goals. So it's setting the culture of instructional staff that are committed to improving their instruction and student outcomes. And really making sure that is happening. And we talked about how do you make that happen? How do you ensure that program culture, climate, and work conditions support continuous improvement?
Vision and mission.
Vision and mission. What else?
Model.
Lead by example. Lead by example and do what you say what you mean. And if you say that if your program values continuous improvement, then make sure that everyone understands and is participating, and that you are participating and modeling that. And very good, Stacey, and be open yourself to it. Any questions about that? Okay, let's move on to the fourth bullet, high degree of professional collaboration among teachers focused around sharing and improving instructional practices. And Suzanne said, advocate for PD opportunities to be available when the teachers are available. So high degree of professional collaboration among teachers focused around sharing and improving instructional practices. Literature maintains that beginning teachers should have many opportunities to engage in scheduled interactive sessions. And collaborations will improve teaching and lessen their isolation. So collaboration is just so critical. So Stacey, they do rotating icebreakers to really make that strong relationship. But again, I mean, I think Lakia talked about how she uses her staff meetings for it develops it into a learning community, that they actually learn together in those staff meetings, so that they're sharing and learning and growing together. And a new teacher, it may be through the induction program. If they have a peer coach, they may be able to work with that peer coach. The peer coach may actually be able to have them say, you know, why don't you go, you're working on differentiation. I know this teacher is really strong at it. Why don't you go observe that teacher? Those kind of collaborations really strengthens the teacher because they're seeing, they'll be able to see how others do it. Any questions about that? So, Gina said, we just had a former student come back and teach us basic Arabic. We all reflect on the experience together and thought about how it impacts practice. Okay, great. The important thing here is, remember we talked about there's a team approach. It's the teacher, the new teacher, the peer coach, the director. But here, this bullet, and this is where I want to try and expanding it, it's really even the program level. So added to that, we want to actually, because the collaboration is so important, we want to add the rest of your program community is really critical to the induction program also. And the next bullet is an expectation to participate in professional learning and staff that are committed to continuous learning to improve student outcomes. I mean, I think this is just, I don't think there's much discussion. It just really is so important to have that happen. And this has to be a part of your culture, a part of your values that's repeatedly brought up constantly. So people know this is when you're hiring or when you're, you know, from year to year, this is something that is critical to your program. How do people let staff know right now that there's that, and if there's an expectation to participate in professional learning and integrate it into their practice so they can continuously learn and improve student outcomes?
So that type of stuff is generally monitored by our site managers who work and monitor professional development plans with each instructor. So a lot of those conversations happen after an instructor participates in certain development activity and how they plan to really use that in the classroom and use what they've learned.
Great. So that's the monitoring. But how do you make sure that the expectation is clear to everyone, that that expectation that continuous learning is just something that is valued and expected in your program?
That part's communicated by me and by everyone in the program to any new member of the program through their induction, through their orientation, through all of their communications and meetings with the rest of the staff.
So fantastic. And Suzanne says during the interview process, it's part of the conversation. Stacy says she talks about it every week. Stacy, where do you say it every week?
Staff meeting.
Staff meeting, okay. You're saying how important continuous improvement is. Christine does it at the beginning of the year at staff meetings and ongoing meetings, listed on job description. Suzanne says it's discussed in the interview and the number of hours are clearly defined. And Stacy says, again, staff. So that's great. It's something that's constantly being revisited. And then the use of data and evidence for program improvement in instruction, which we talked about a little bit before. Any questions about this? Deborah says that each new cycle is the time to introduce the expectation that this will take place and then follow up. New cycle being, what do you mean by that, Deborah, each new cycle? Are you there? Okay, what Deborah will get to us when she talks about what each new cycle is. Okay, so this as a leader, this is what you need to be working towards, to making sure all these components are there so that you could have a strong induction program. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about leading any of these areas?
Nope, it's all great stuff.
Okay, and Stacy says correcting negative comments like the scope and sequence is a pain in the butt. Okay. So here we go back to the factors for successful induction. AB directors, peer coaches, beginning teachers, and what else was we wanted to add to this? There was one other group. Stop saying, oh. What other group do we want to add?
The rest of the team?
The rest of all the teachers can be able to be part of the team for helping the new teacher. We're trying to really encourage that collaboration, the discussion, the learning between teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the program staff handbook and start talking about that. Advisors should be included, all staff, definitely. So what topics, when we look at for the topics, when I forward you a list of all the topics, was there any topics that you thought was like, I've never thought of adding that topic to the book, to your student handbook? Okay, so they all made sense to you.
Yeah.
Was there any? Oh, go ahead, Am.
No, I was just going to say, Sue, yeah, I'd have to go back and take a look again at the entirety of the list. But it was really eye-opening to me, the number of things that I take for granted in our institution that other programs have to do as part of their induction. So I think we talked about things that HR handles and some of the other parts of our induction. So it opened my eyes and grew my respect for my colleagues who have to deal with all of it. So,
great. Was there anything that you thought was missing from the list? Deb said thank you to Adam. Is there anything that you thought was missing from the list? Stacey, what do you mean by encouraging feedback to you?
Well, one of the things that we got in the Leadership Academy was that tool of letting something to give them so they can give feedback to me on a regular basis, which they're afraid to do.
Okay, so you want...
I don't know how to quite open that up so that they're more... I think they do that verbally, but I don't know. I think it would be better if it was more open.
So does anyone have any ideas for how to encourage more feedback to you as the director?
I mean, that's... Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe in the letter from the director to specifically state your open door policy, or somehow make it feel welcoming that you're looking for feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, Stacey, I've had a real tough time with this, trying to come up with different tools to increase communication with instructors and staff in general. I've tried like a small group of instructor liaisons last year that would try and be a go-between for our instructors and me, and that was a disaster. So I just try, and this year's gone better. It's been individual meetings via Google Hangout that has worked better, but everything I've tried really has not been overly successful. So I wish I had better advice, but the more you're out there and the more you're vulnerable, I think, to your staff, the better.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, and Stacey talks about the letter that's, I think, I'm not sure who said it, Suzanne, I think, that could be an opener for the actual staff handbook.
Yeah.
Stacey says a work in progress. That's exactly, yes. The staff handbook and just being able to get people to be able to give feedback to you is just, it's developing that culture.
Mm-hmm.
In your program. So let's go and just look at kind of the staff handbook. So here's introduction, message from the executive director, president. It could be, and this could be where your letter is.
Yep.
Vision and mission, philosophy and program values. So what would be something that would go into your program values, do you think?
Continuous learning.
Right. This is a great opportunity to write about continuous learning, continuous program improvement, that, professional learning is so important, and a growth, that you want to have a growth mindset at your program, that it's okay to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really all about trying to be supportive, to be able to, for everyone to work together so that every student reaches their goals. So it's working together for everyone to helping students reach their goals. It's not just you as the chief education officer. It's not the advisor. It's not that one teacher. It's all of you working together and helping and sharing ideas. That collaboration for success. And then if you have it in your handbook, then what happens? What do you have to do?
Live it.
Exactly. You have to make sure it happens. That there's that time to make sure that continuous improvement for all, that there's time to collaborate, that you're all kind of working together to make sure that the learners are successful. I didn't see it in this. Okay, so Christian was saying I didn't see it in the sample. Exactly. That was something that was missing when I sent to the staff handbook. Mary talks about high quality instruction. That was something that's really missing also. And that is really talking about what are the expectations. That was missing in the handbook. And everyone was in agreement with you have to live it. Okay. I mean, this list was put together. We went through. We asked for programs to send us their handbooks, and then we compiled this list from every topic that programs had in their handbooks. So this is a pretty comprehensive list. But does anyone see anything that's not in here that you think should be in here?
I don't think so.
I think one of the things that is in the staff handbook is actually in miscellaneous is also the student handbook. I don't know if that was anywhere. So let's look for the handbook on pages 4 and 5. Does everyone have a copy of the staff handbook I sent out?
Yes.
So Christine brought up a point that the culture and values were included with vision mission. So that's something
that wasn't me.
Oh,
I mentioned that the teacher observation stuff wasn't there.
Oh, the teacher observation wasn't there. Okay.
Yeah.
So the teacher observation, what effectiveness looks like was not there, and that would be somewhere you'd need to put it.
Right.
But also the culture and the values are not there in this handbook. Suzanne, 4 and 5. 4, 5, and I think up to page 8 we're covering 4 to 8. So that's something that you really need to really think about and have your staff buy into. What are the values that you want to embrace in your program, and then write that up for your staff handbook. And what are some of the important values that you might want to include? Data-driven. The word circle has values. The word circle. Oh, the word circle has values, right. But it's not really written up what the values are. Respect for all. What are things that are really critical that you want to make sure is in your culture, program culture? Reflection, reflective practitioner. But what does reflection go with? Continuous improvement. That is, the program has continuous improvement. No matter how good your outcomes are, that you're always willing to continuously improve, to get better. The best you can be or do, and that everyone is always continuing to improve their practice. Self-assessment and improvement. And high expectations for all, that every student can be able to learn and grow. And maybe mistakes are okay. You learn from your mistakes. But you have to really think about what are those key statements that you want to make sure that are in your handbook. Okay, and let's go to page 8. This talks about program evaluation. Does everyone see page 8?
Yes.
What's another way of being able to title program evaluation? Adam, you kind of said it.
Continuous improvement.
Right. So you may want to talk about continuous improvement and put it onto the growth aspect versus which evaluation always gets people kind of, oh my gosh. But continuous improvement is more, people may think of as more of a growth-oriented concept. Is there anything else that you might want to add in these 4 pages? You may want to even talk about the data that you can use for program evaluation, program continuous improvement. Sorry, I just read what they...
Yeah, and this includes performance standards, which, I know we're all going to be governed by WIOA and whatnot, but one thing I'm going to have in mind is, yes, these are what everyone says we should be doing, but I, for one, going to continue to push education over employment, and that we're not working to fit into these boxes. We're working to make the best life for the students we're serving. So that's
okay.
Again, one of my values, but I want that to be clear to people.
Okay, so then you would put that in.
Mm-hmm.
But it needs to be clear what your vision, mission, and values are, and that would distinguish your program for saying that education really is critical. Being able to reach their educational goals is really critical. So let's turn to page 14. So you see there's a attendance policy and what the staff person has to do. And then it goes into this length of stay policy for any student. Student portfolios is on page 15. And then page 16, I just wanted to have you have some, is the program expectations. Reading the program expectations, what are the strengths of this and what would you like changed?
This doesn't really say anything about PD. I guess that's
okay.
Maybe that's somewhere else. Yeah, it's somewhere else,
But if it's program expectations, if continuous improvement is important, continuous learning,
mm-hmm.
You probably want to put in the program expectations again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who talked about? Oh, Christine and Mary talked about high quality instruction, that it was missing. You may want to also include what is the tool you're using for, how are you defining high quality instruction? Well, wait a second. Right, it's very Adam says it's very operational. So you may want to go and have more explicit about what is a characteristic of effective instruction. How the staff's going to work together to make sure that every student learns. How to use data. Okay. Is there anything else that you see missing?
What about the drivers of persistence?
So what would you want to put in there, Stacy? What are you thinking?
This comes from World Education, but they just have the persistence strategies of sense of belonging, agency, relevance, clarity of purpose, competence, and stability. I definitely refer to those a lot.
Okay.
So maybe I'll put something in there about that.
You may want to put in, even Carol Dweck's growth mindset. Really teaching with that for every student to have, every teacher having a growth mindset in their practice and being able to instill that to the learners.
Yep.
Does everyone know about growth? I think we talked about growth mindset.
Yes.
That's so critical when we're talking about students making positive gain and be able to reach their achievement, what their goals are, and achieving what they want.
Right.
Anything else for program expectations? I mean, may want to do, if you're requiring lesson plans, you may want to be more explicit what they require for what components.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to also, if you're having an induction program, you may want to put some more components, more information about that. If you are, we talked about having a cycle for continuous improvement. If there's a professional development plan and an evaluation of the plan due every year, then you may want to put that in also.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's all very clearly laid out.
I would want it to be more explicit about, if it's going to be operational, about where do the subplans go? How do you call in sick? How do you, what the procedures are for that? And
I think it does talk about sick and other things someplace.
There might be someplace else.
Does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I think it. Binders.
I think it's under communications, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but I think they do go into expectations. But you may want to change things around and put them in different places. But I thought I did see it somewhere, but I'm not sure. It talks about student attendance. I don't know if it talks about.
It has on page 19 the whole paragraph about substitute teaching.
Yeah.
And it does say, I think under program expectations on page 16, to have a substitute folder with lesson plans, materials in the classroom or in a designated area.
But it doesn't really say, yeah, I mean, you may want to be more clearly outline that.
Yeah.
But it does, further down, I think it's on 19, it does say, make sure the message was received if you call in to say you're not coming to class.
Right.
So it is specific there. Maybe in that list, it might be, page numbers might be put there.
And you may want to do teacher absence, what the policy is, and then put substitute teachers. And you may want to put
it's such a comprehensive list. How do you keep it fresh and relevant? How do you know people are going to read this 75-page binder?
What strategies can people use to make sure it stays that you're able to go over it?
Well, it could be electronic.
Right. How can you make it fun even at your first meeting? How can you make this into a game or yeah, I know, fun. I mean, how about like a scavenger hunt, looking for it and finding it something? Pardon?
I was just going to say that. Scavenger hunt.
Hugs. Kahoot, Kate says. Everyone loves competition. So
what
Kate,
is
you want to explain Kahoot again?
Oh, do I want to explain Kahoot? Kahoot's just a fun kind of online game. It's really interactive. People can just use a phone. You can break them up into teams and quiz them on different types of questions that you want to ask about the staff handbook. And it's really funny how competitive people get. But it's just a fun way to take something that may be a little dry and make it something a little more fun.
I mean, so we can explore Kahoot, but there's ways to make sure that you can get through this and kind of revisit the key areas. Any other ideas for how to get through the staff handbook and make sure everyone is up to date on it? find the typos. That's great. Wonderful. Okay, page 17. Oh, Kate just put down how to access Kahoot. For page 17. Is there anything in this professional development section that you would also think that should be added? We are okay. Stacy would like to add that that everyone in the program is a leader. 12 hours of professional development requirements. Okay.
So it might be worth breaking down the expectations into different areas.
Okay.
Because it's just a broad term, and there are obviously a lot of expectations. So you might want to break it up into instructional expectations, planning expectations, professional development expectations, just whatever it looks like, just to break up the bulleted list to make it more visually appealing. But those are just some
good idea. Yeah, that's great. I mean, you may put something about a reflective practitioner, that how important reflective practitioner is, and what reflective practitioner is about. Really thinking about their practice before, after, and during when they're teaching. And using it, professional development, coming back and really thinking about how it impacts their practice. But your professional development section if you're going to value continuous growth, it really has to match and really show that you have a vision for you. It really has to be clear that you really want, if that's important to your program. At the bottom of 17, you see weekly common planning time. Remember that whole collaboration. How are you going to make collaboration happen at your program? And the other thing you may need to talk about is the whole idea of induction for new teachers and the support for ongoing teachers. What kind of supports there are available to you, to your staff. Is there anything else that you have a question about or that you're struggling with your staff handbook? So why don't we talk about this? Who's responsible for updating and creating your staff handbook?
I think that'd be me. Or all of us.
Okay, so far there's a lot of me's. Do you get others involved? So Stacey has a whole team. Who's your team? And Christine has other staff involved. Who do you involve? Stacey does me, myself, and I. How can you get people involved if you have the time? For your sheriff's department. But is there things specific to your teaching that you need to be able to do, like teacher expectations, Suzanne? Something to think about. As Stacey said, assign sections to review and update to a group of people. You have to have time to be. That you may have to have a little bit extra money, but at least they can update it and then bring it back to a meeting. You can also have it at a staff meeting discussion of what if you want to be able to expand what your policy is for something, bring it up to a staff meeting. Does this cover everything? Is this clear? And have everyone review it at staff meetings so that people feel part of it and they can comment on it. I guess in the summer is a great time to have staff, now that, well, I guess everyone's still working on curriculum though. But again, it's to review and figure out what needs to be updated. How do you ensure it's a living document, just doesn't sit on the shelf? We talked about having a game to review it every year. What's new? We talked about having it as part of the, well, it could be part of our orientation. So Deborah plans to assign sections based on what each staff person is most knowledgeable about. Gina says make it electronic and easy to update. And next comment, we can keep your ideas coming, but we'll just keep, whose role is it to enforce policies in the handbook? So Adam says, mail one page at a time to all of your staff over the summer. Anyone not bringing the entire thing to the first staff meeting must do a dance. Suzanne, if you do newsletters, memos, highlight a different section each time. That's a great idea. Christine, you're talking about whose role it is to enforce policies. Right. Me and the college. Stacy, me, but everyone should hold each other accountable. And how, Stacy, how would you hold each other accountable?
Well, things like if we've decided on a certain system, like one-on-one meetings after the first mapped test, then if one teacher's not doing it, we need to figure out why they're not doing it and offer some support to make it happen.
Okay, so as a team, if a policy is not being held, how can we make sure it's happening?
Right.
What would you do if a teacher is consistently, you have a rule that you are supposed to be in your classroom at 3 o'clock and the teacher's consistently late for coming into the classroom? Who has to handle that?
That's me.
Okay. If people feel like they need more time to go over instructional strategies, who would that be?
I would think that's a team thing.
Okay. What other things do you think that the group could hold each other accountable for?
I'm sorry, say that again. I was reading Adam's compliment.
Okay. Yes. He's very very nice. What other types of concerns, issues, or happenings could the program staff be held accountable to each other?
Difficult students in terms of behavioral issues, perhaps.
Okay, helping each other deal with that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Good idea. That's great. Anyone else have any ideas? What else could the staff help each other be accountable for? What else? Well, a good thing is what happens with the performance? You don't seem to be doing well.
Oh yeah, that's all hands on deck.
Student progress, right. That's keeping that data out in the front. If you're not doing well, everyone's accountable for it. And Mary said it's not so easy. Mm-hmm. Mary, you want to talk about that? I think that's what you're talking. I'm not sure. The problem with the chat is I'm not sure if people are responding to which one. You worry that it becomes too competitive. I think what people are saying, not for each classroom, but as a whole, that you look at that. So if someone is not doing well in a classroom, it's everyone's responsibility. It's not just that person. Mm-hmm. It could be them. I think that's what we're trying to say here. Does that make?
So I'll just clarify. I'm looking more at alignment. So student progression from level to level, making sure that everything makes sense and everyone's on the same page for what a student should be mastering at a particular level was what I was thinking.
And what has someone? So you're talking more about curriculum?
Yep.
Okay, to make sure the curriculum is supporting that whole learning, teaching with the gap there, to make sure that there's no gaps, and that's why students are getting the learning that they should be getting in a classroom.
That was my thinking with
yes.
on that. Yeah,
that's perfect. Okay, so that would definitely be something that the staff can help out with. So where you can, you need. Right. If you only have one class per level, they cannot be mutually accountable. That's true, Mary. And that's where ABE is so much more. It's difficult in some respects compared to K-12. But you just have to really think about it as bringing your community together as much as you can, that collaboration, and having it establish that culture of continuous improvement and everyone being responsible for as much as possible for student learning. And where necessary, you need to be the person that enforces policies. You are that chief education officer, and you get the big bucks to be able, sometimes having to make those difficult discussions. Aren't you all lucky? Yeah, the big bucks, right? It's all relative to what the big bucks are. So Stacy said yes, but level 1 should model what students will expect in level 2 and 2 in level 3. Does that make sense to everyone? That you can be mutually accountable because each class has to get the class up to the next level, and they should have the needed skills and knowledge to go into that class, or not have a lot of gaps. Mm-hmm. Is that what I'm hearing you all say?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I'll have agree on the criteria for moving up a level. Yes, and that comes through your scope and sequence and. So, is there any other questions regarding really keeping the staff handbook and having it be part of a comprehensive process, and staff handbook being part of an orientation for new staff and be revisited every year with your whole entire staff at your program? Is everyone on board and kind of understand that? I know it's a lot for you all to do.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, that sounds good. Gina said just attach it to the RFP and Appendix A. Christine's only concern is, you didn't say what it was. Christina, are you still there, or did you pass out on us after you were talking about the concern? Choose your own adventure, yeah. So Christine, we're waiting for you to tell us what your concern is. Okay. Okay, so the next slide is, how will a comprehensive induction program at your program support WIOA? It will illustrate Christine, talk about will illustrate big changes, meaning what? My mic isn't working. Give me a minute. Okay, he's fine. So how will, if people want to share, they can talk about how will a comprehensive induction program at your program support WIOA? Okay, student success will be clear. Advisor role will be more clear. Remember, go back to what we're. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make you dizzy here, Wes. It's, look at the third and fourth bullet. Right. So what everyone's saying is high quality instruction is so critical. Being able to make sure that learners have the best teacher from day one. So bullets, the 3 and 4, those bullets are critical to WIOA. And improving student outcomes by making sure that everyone has effective teachers as soon as from day one in their classroom. And Christine talks about that she's excited to start putting together a better handbook teacher induction program, but if the RFP has big programmatic changes, I will need to adjust the handbook. I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully there won't be too many shockers. I think a well-run program is going to be, we know that effective teaching is going to be, and corrective teaching, a strong curriculum. You know what some of the factors are for what they're looking at? Those things will not change. There might be like the performance measures, some other things that you may have to, you may have to tweak, but I don't think there'll be major changes in it. And Gina says that if the RFP looks like the IOQ, we're going to be talking about this. The IPQs right there are right now is really everything we've been talking about. So everything that we've been talking about are the IPQs so far. Do you see any change, anything that doesn't align with what you've learned at the Mass Leadership Academy?
No.
If you go back and kind of look through everything?
Nope.
Correct, it's all aligned. So this work will only strengthen your program moving forward. So just like to clarify what your role is, you need to create an environment that fosters the success of peer coach and beginning teachers for the comprehensive induction program. That you need to really work on establishing a program culture of high expectations for all and continuous improvement. And let's get back to this for Stacy, because this is something you said you were having trouble with. Can anyone give some ideas of how she might be able to move her staff along that are resistant? And Stacy, is it everyone or just one or two people?
Mostly just one or two.
Okay. So it's like a subculture that are kind of dragging their feet. Adam says replace them.
I knew Adam was going to say that.
I know. Have you talked to them about where your program's going and why it's important?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and what do they say to you?
Well, I think I've been more successful in the scope and sequence front. I think they're starting to understand the value of that. Just
Okay.
more getting them to put reflections down in writing and make tweaks and really document what they're doing so I can use that in the future. It's more one in particular, Mary has some knowledge of her where she's just outright no. Like a simple thing like putting objectives on the board because she doesn't agree with it, she won't do it. So it's, I mean, I'm not going to hire her back in the fall at this point if she doesn't change, but she's a good teacher in many ways, and I hate to lose her. I just don't understand how I can break through the resistance.
Stacy, in all seriousness, beyond just the replace her comment, I mean, it does, based on all the work that you're doing, it will start to become a performance issue. These are the expectations of an instructor in your program, and she's failing to meet them. So I don't know what your environment looks like. We're a union environment, so there are steps to take as far as corrective action, all that stuff. But it is a performance issue, and you have every right not to bring her back if she's not meeting the expectations of the job description that she's been provided. So, yes, don't bring her back, but I've found with some of those folks also, as they see other programs having to do this, they realize that it's not just me being an asshole, and making their lives miserable and having to do all of these things. They're seeing that other programs have finished what we should have finished and not have done. So I think that's helped some people move beyond their spot, but I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Two things. Remember, everyone in the program, first, besides going through that handbook, every year you should be going through what? So everyone knows what the characteristics of effective teaching are.
Yep.
So that really is a document that is critical, that everyone agrees on what the vision is.
Yeah.
And from that is being able to have learning objectives and being able to have students be able to gauge themselves, and for the teacher to be able to figure out how students are doing is critical, and research shows that is critical for gain.
Right.
So, but I think that Suzanne said, listen to Adam, it's her attitude. And I think that one thing that's really important to remember is for program culture, if it's the unwritten rules that will trump everything else.
Right.
So if you don't enforce something else, that becomes the culture of the organization. If that person doesn't have to put the learning objectives on, why do I?
Exactly. Yep.
So you need, if this is something that's critical, which it is critical, then you need to stand up and say this is not going to be acceptable.
Right. Yeah, and I've definitely been sending that message, and I think I'm stepping it up more and more each time. So we'll see.
The other thing is that another thing that you can do is form a subculture of really strong teachers to really become more vocal.
Yes.
In meetings and saying how, and being able to talk about how much help how it has helped their students and what success they're having. Because coming from some other teachers, it might also spur her to move in another direction.
Yeah, I actually had one of my new teachers after the art of teaching where he had an aha moment about learning objectives, share what he learned with everyone, to kind of give me backup, and it's not just me, but it still hasn't moved her, so.
Yeah, so it might be. Any other suggestions for Stacy?
That's okay. I know what I got to do. Thank you.
Okay, great. Ensure that, so promote and support induction program for 1 year minimum or up to 3 years would be ideal. Ensure there's a comprehensive staff handbook, that there's an orientation session for all new staff, and who does it, and how does it work. Ensure that orientations are scheduled for new staff. Ensure that new teachers enroll in foundations for new staff. Supervise new teachers by performing regular classroom observations and reviewing lesson plans to give them feedback. Evaluate beginning teachers so that you can give them growth-oriented feedback for them to be able to improve. If you have a peer coach in your program, really, and Stacey, this is something you said that you really need to make sure that everyone realizes it is it's a collaboration. It's everyone working together to support each other's success in the classroom. And if there's any difficulties with the peer coach and the new teacher, you would mediate any difficulties and really respect the confidentiality that they can't tell you every difficulty, every mistake, or every problem that the coach is having, but yet it has to be a collaboration.
Right.
Any other questions? So the induction program is critically important. A 3-year program is not really supported in the rate system now. Hopefully there will be a new recognition of this in the new RFP. But we talked about the fact that it's not supported anywhere right now except for the art of teaching, but you can use different sources, PD money, program development money. What else did we say we could use? And actually, if anyone participates in the peer coaching for new teachers project, there's also a stipend given to the new coach, which really does help. be able to set it up. And the coach is then trained to go in and develop other coaches at your program so that they can really support other coaches at your program so that more teachers can have a peer coach. The one thing I do, thanks to Adam said that the stipend really helped them put together the program. The one thing I wanted to, which I didn't stress enough, is that a comprehensive induction program, should it be for teachers that you think will struggle or for all teachers?
All.
It's right, all. And that's one thing we really are encouraging, because some programs thought, okay, I'm just going to give it to teachers that don't have a teaching background, or I think that from their hiring process look like they're a little bit weaker. But it should be all teachers. Every teacher can get something from it. And lastly, because I know we have 3 minutes and we're ending, for your next steps for creating a comprehensive induction program, I want you to review and reflect on what was discussed today. I want you to really think about, what does your program currently have in place for a program induction for new staff? And what is your vision for a comprehensive induction program? And what is your plan and timetable to make it happen? And really think about your program, if you're not already participating in the Peer Coaching for New Teachers project, participating next year. The application process will be starting in April, and it will start in September. And you can work with your new coaches, your instructional coaches, on these 5 questions, really kind of moving forward with it. Any questions about your next steps? And lastly, these are the webinar, what we were supposed to do: to find the components of a comprehensive induction program and describe your responsibilities for developing, monitoring, and evaluating it.